Hello guys, my name is Rizky from acreativealt. In this video, I'm going to share a couple of tips on shooting interview videos. Since the beginning of the pandemic last year, events have no longer been our bread and butter, and acreativealt have been moving towards content creations and advertising. Interview videos have become our new bread and butter. And of course, just like many other things that I do, I made a lot of mistakes in the past. I've been trying to constantly improving on our video quality. One of the things that I learned is the fact that recording an interview video is much more complicated than just simply putting a camera on a tripod and recording someone's talking. And in fact, there are a lot of things to consider, and I think this video is going to be a part of a series that I'm going to try to do. There are many things to consider, like the placement of the camera, placement of lightings, what kind of microphones, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to highlight in this video is actually first thing that a lot of people tend to forget, something that I also tend to forget in the past, is the location itself. I'm going to give you a couple of tips on deciding an interview spot on your location, especially if you are my clients. You've probably seen my YouTube setup before, and you've probably seen how we actually go to your office and to do your setup. I think location is one of the most important things to consider before you consider the types of cameras and lightings that you may want to use. For some of you guys who have been to my office before, you know that my office is really small, and many of my clients, of course, have much bigger office. But regardless what is the size of your office itself, an office is still an office. Therefore, we will see a lot of random things around, like documents lying around, water bottle, and of course all our personal stuff that may not have any relation to the particular in the video that you're actually working on. So let me just go through a couple of different considerations that I do whenever I do any types of interview videos. In any types of interview videos that we do, I always try to have some sort of a storytelling at the background. So therefore, if you look at my YouTube stations, you can see some of the stuff at the back. You can see my company name at the back, a few of my vintage cameras at the back. So this is the most common mistake that I've seen from many people when they're actually trying to do interview video. And needless to say, I did these mistakes too in the past, whereby you have a wall and you put the subject very close to the wall like this. So something like this will not be ideal because it doesn't give you enough depth to tell a story. Well, of course, unless you are thinking of doing like a high-key kind of a style. This is something that you probably want to avoid. So one thing to consider when you are actually deciding your interview spot is what do you see behind the interviewees. So for example, if I pick my desk as an interview spot, you can see a lot of rubbish lying around basically. So you can see my table is pretty messy, and at the same time I can see like this box of masks behind me, which is totally unrelated to what we do. Once you have decided on the interview spots, you can start to take note on what are the items that you need to remove. I will probably remove this mask because like we are not a medical company or some sort, unless of course the mask is actually part of the story. Maybe I just put a camera in the background. Let's say something like this, and of course I have to clean up my table a little bit, especially removing those that are absolutely not related to the video that we are doing. Although leaving some small items can be helpful to tell a story as well. An example, let's say I always have this lenses on my desk. I probably can keep it there because that is something that we actually do. Another point is that whenever I'm trying to decide on location, the last thing that I need to consider is lighting, because I always prefer to build our own lights. Once I have decided on the interview spot, this is the next thing that I always do. I always carry portable lightings around. Something like this, an example. I can use this to simply test out light positions. Simply just move this around to decide the angle of lights later on. We always do this before the actual interviewees came in. So when the person actually came to the set, everything is ready to go. I always believe that whoever that we are interviewing will always be a VIP person. So therefore, I think their time is really valuable. One of the common opinion that I heard from people whenever you are doing this kind of interview video is that they prefer to have natural lights. Yes, I do agree that natural light can give you a really nice result. I personally don't really like to shoot with natural light. The fact that I can't control it, I have a pretty large window in my office whereby I have a decent amount of natural light comes in. It looks really nice in the morning, But the problem with the natural light is that it always changes throughout the hours. So therefore, if you are recording a really long video, the light itself constantly changing on the video itself, which I do find it a bit distracting. Or the weather suddenly changes, of course, it's no longer nice anymore. So I would prefer, if I have this kind of situations whereby I have a large window, I will actually block it. Some of my clients probably seen this before. We actually brought a flag whereby it's simply just to block the lights. I would prefer to start with a darkness, then we start to build the lights accordingly. One of the most common requests that I've gotten from clients is that they want to use an open window as a background. This is really understandable because a lot of my clients have a really nice office in a top floor of buildings in a business district area. Of course, I don't have that kind of a nice office. Outside the old building that we have our office in, is simply just another old building. I just want to use this as an example on how to set up on something like this. To be honest, something like this has never been ideal for me. I will never propose something like this to clients because the fact that I never like to shoot with natural light, as mentioned. The lights from the window is constantly changing, but I know that this is a very common request. So therefore, I will just show you a simple setup that you can do with this kind of a requirement. So one thing to take note with this kind of situations, I actually made a lot of mistakes in the past whereby naturally when we have a subject, we tend to adjust our exposure to the subject itself. Of course, we want the subject to be perfectly lit up. And this is actually very challenging because then you have a backlit kind of situation. If I were to adjust my exposure in these situations, I have to brighten up my exposure. At the same time, you can actually start seeing that the background is completely overblown. You hardly be able to see any details, and once the sun gets stronger, you will see the background will turns completely overexposed, and this window will turns to be completely white. When you have something like this, the first thing that you need to do is to adjust the exposure to the background. We need to make it as dark as possible to get as much as detail as you want on the window itself. So now you can see, although my face is completely underexposed, but you can see that we start to be able to see some detail on the window. Once you have that, the next thing that I need to do is to have lights in front. So I'm gonna pull that light, and now, of course, you can see my face a little bit better, and at the same time, you can still see some detail at the background. So just remember, whenever you are actually shooting something against a window, try to adjust your exposure to the window first before adjusting anything for the subject. Another common mistake is to put your subject too close to the background. You've seen my equipment rack that is really messy. Probably wouldn't use this as a background. By simply putting myself further from this background, it can create something that is slightly more decent. The problem about having such a busy background is the fact that people will tend to be able to figure out what are the items at the background, and it's distracting the viewers from the subject. Regardless what kind of a camera and lens that you use, when you put the subject far away from the background, you will tend to get a bit more depth of field. So therefore, the backgrounds will be in a defocus and it's not so distracting anymore. And of course, there are a lot of things that we can actually do once you are actually having this kind of situations. You can see I added a bit of a key light on this side. Of course, I can build these lights a little bit better, and at the same time I put just a simple eye light on the side to give my outline a little bit of definition, so you can see a bit of separations between me and the subject. So with that, I hope this video is useful. If you want to see how we approach our video productions daily, you can actually see my behind the scene daily on my Insta story. And if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me through LinkedIn. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.